Hello, I'm Howard Green. Well, European leaders are gathered in Brussels today for a summit to put the final touches on accords to tighten fiscal discipline and to create a permanent bailout fund. This as talks over a debt restructuring deal for Greece threaten to overshadow the meeting. One of the sticking points, Germany is pushing for Greece to give up control over its budget policy as part of discussions over a second bailout package. Still, there are some encouraging signs that a deal between Greece and its private sector creditors, largely banks and hedge funds, is very close. And if consummated, a deal could open the way for the IMF and the European Union to discuss their share of participation in a second bailout of Greece. An initial agreement on Greece's expected double dip into an EU rescue fund could come as early as this week. To discuss it all, we are joined by Brian Milner, senior columnist at the Globe and Mail, and Alex Jershevsky, founder and managing partner at Recovery Partners. Welcome to both of you. Good to have you here. Afternoon. So, are the chances of a disorderly default in Greece diminishing?
I don't know if they're diminishing. I think the default's inevitable, and the only question is whether it will be orderly or disorderly. This restructuring, this deal with the creditors doesn't mean that their problems are over or that there's not going to be a disorderly default down the road.
Why wouldn't this prevent, if they get the deal, why wouldn't it prevent a disorderly default?
Because it doesn't fix their fiscal hole, it doesn't solve their balance sheet issues, and with the austerity measures that they've been forced to implement, their economy is getting worse and worse, so they have no revenues. So their revenue shortfall is going to get worse, and they're not going to meet those budget deficit targets that they've been told they have to meet to get more money.
So is that true? They could have a deal and still have a disorderly default?
Absolutely. As Brian says, I don't think this deal is at all sustainable. I mean, if it's put into place, it basically projects a 120% debt to GDP number in 2020. That doesn't make sense. No country's ever gone through 10 years of austerity with 120% debt to GDP and survived politically. I mean, if it does survive, it's going to entail a hell of a lot of repression on the people. And that's simply unsustainable. It's undemocratic, unsustainable, and unrighteous.
So is it pointless to even go for this deal with the private creditors?
I think it's a showcase exercise. And in fact, there's no real right down here. For Greece to agree to this would mean that they would relinquish a tremendous advantage they currently enjoy. And that is the fact that 90% of Greek debt right now is listed under Greek law. So you have to renegotiate these things under Greek law. If these new restructured bonds come into effect, the Greeks will not have as much leverage in restructuring that debt. And in fact, the Germans are asking for significant control over Greek finances as part of this thing. One of the clauses in the restructuring pact mandates that Greek interest payments to bondholders now become priority payments in the budget, superseding even social welfare and health expenditures. So it's a tremendously bitter pill for
within the country or outside?
Within the country. The interest payments are now the priority payment in the Greek budget. And it's an extremely bitter pill they're asking the Greeks to swallow. And I don't think it's politically sustainable if they do swallow it.
Politically sustainable?
Well, I don't think any of this is politically sustainable. I think the next election will turf out whoever's been running Greece, even if it's the technocrats trying to stay in power.
We're really, exactly. We're still in a denial stage here. A real durable remedy would involve a much more significant write-down and a soft of the debts and a soft exit by Greece and probably Portugal from the Eurozone.
What is a soft exit?
Well, it's a negotiated exit whereby...
Like come again? When you're ready?
Yeah, when you're ready, exactly.
Or
you get out
at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, you fire
the
up
Eurozone.
You fire up the drachma. You fire up the Greek central bank. You fire up the Portuguese central bank. You readopt the drachma. You probably do that within the context of a banking holiday and capital controls, and then you negotiate a 5 to 10 year reentry plan if that's what you want, a reentry option for the economy, subject to meeting certain economic tests by the Greeks and Portuguese on getting back into the euro, if that's what they want to do at that time. But they're not going to be able, as Brian says, they're not going to be able to escape from this debt trap with this austerity without the ability to devalue their currency and get the economy restarted.
But they don't seem to like the Germans shoving it down their throat.
Well, it's going to be more of it. It's going to be more of it, you know.
They have actually hold a card in this, Alex?
The Greeks have negative control over this situation. As I say, if they say, no, we're not going to go along with it, we're going to default, and here's the new deal, and we're leaving the euro, I mean, there's not much the rest of the Eurozone could do to stop that, short of sending them the army in.
So meantime, I mean, I want to ask you a question about the ECB, because there's been much made about, in these negotiations with the private creditors, the ECB holds Greek bonds as well, but is not willing to take a haircut. We heard from former Goldman Sachs Vice Chair Ken Curtis today, who was saying that the ECB probably bought them for around 70% on the dollar. So even if they took a 30% write down, they wouldn't be out any money. So why won't the ECB take a hit?
Well, historically, the IFIs, the IMF, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, in restructurings have never taken a write down on their debt.
Just on principle?
Just on principle.
Why they-
Yeah, the ECB had the idea that they would just sit on the bonds and ride them to maturity, and get 100 cents on the euro back. That's not happening. In fact, the bonds they bought are worth less now on the market value basis than when they bought them. The 3-year money, and as Brian mentions, that's been engineered to support the short end of the government curves and provide buying support to prices there. But if you go beyond the 3-year, all the bonds of the peripherals are already pricing in a very significant default risk for those countries.
But my same question to you, could we get that kind of dramatic binary response in the markets, like off on again?
Well, yeah, we're now in a world where there's a lot of uncertainty, and so you're going to look. It's like people lurching from one side of a boat to another when it's in a storm. Yeah, you're going to get that. The market's going to go one way, other way, schizophrenic reactions. It's still uncertain how all of this is going to play out. As I say, the Greeks are still holding some very big cards, and they're being asked to swallow some very bitter pills. And I don't think we have a sustainable solution on the table yet.
All right, guys, we got to leave it there. Good to have the two of you back with me. Many thanks. Brian Milner of the Globe and Mail and Alex Drashevsky of Recovery Partners. Coming up next, we'll talk to